Hi, here's the CZ75 Shadow. Let's open it up and take a look. Comes with a black plastic case. Has a little part for a tie wrap, but it's not a real lockable case that you can bring around with you. Here's a couple manuals on the CD, nothing special. You can get it all online. And of course, when you're picking up any gun, take the magazine out, open the chamber, make sure it's clear, nothing in there, nothing in the chamber, and never look down the barrel unless you have an inspection plate. If you have that, you can go ahead and look down the barrel to make sure that's clear too. Otherwise, use a cleaning rod. Comes with 3 magazines. Comes with a little printout sheet showing how accurate it is at 25 meters. This one gives you 4-inch groups. The gun itself is around $800, and that gets you the shadow. It doesn't get you the target or the accurate one. Those two actually aren't allowed in the production division of IPSC because they're kind of customed up. That's why they cost a little more than this shadow. They've got a fitted barrel, so this one's a little loose and those ones aren't loose at all. That costs you 50% more, and that makes it so it doesn't fit in the production division. And that's good because you don't want rich people to have an advantage over regular people. So on a normal person's budget, this gun works really well. You can buy it and you don't have to upgrade it, and you can just keep shooting with everyone else. It keeps the playing field even, and that's always important in competitions because you don't want the guy with the $5,000 gun to be able to beat everyone just because he's rich. So this gun comes with a 2-year warranty, and it was made in the Czech Republic, so made with very good quality materials, good workmanship. The paint job is very good. For $800 you can't really complain. And one of the great things about this is accuracy. It gets 4-inch groups. What makes it very accurate is that this slide is in contact the entire length of the gun, as you see here. So when it slides back and forth, it doesn't rattle or anything. If you watch the Glocks, it actually only has a couple metal contact points, and it flops around as the slide cycles back and forth. If you watch a slow motion movie of it, the Glock frame actually bends and rattles around. For beginners, this gun's really good, and it's good for experts because it's super heavy, and the muzzle flip just goes a tiny bit because it's so heavy. So it's good for beginners, and it increases your follow-up shots, so it's really good for experts because they want to do their double taps on the IPSC targets, and this gun makes that a lot easier for you. The gun is sized perfectly for most people. My hand is about an average sized hand, and it wraps around perfectly. Your left hand goes right around there, and your knuckles line up perfectly. If it's too big, then you're gonna have a gap here, but my hands wrap perfectly around the entire gun 360. The grip is also made of very soft and sticky rubber, so if your hands are sweaty or wet for some reason, it still grips onto this very nicely. It doesn't slip at all, and that allows your hand to manage the recoil without the gun slipping around. Any plastic grips and aluminum grips will slip, and that's not something you want when you're gripping onto a firearm. So I wouldn't replace these rubber grips with the aluminum ones because these are great. They give you the most grip. They don't look that good, but they do give you the most grip. And so that promotes good, strong, proper grip. The handle itself is rounded, so when you wrap your hand around it, it feels nice and comfortable. You can squeeze nice and tight, and that gives you a nice, comfortable, strong grip without straining the back of your hand. A lot of Smith & Wessons and Glocks have a kind of a squared back or squared front, and you can only squeeze it tight for a couple seconds before you start to feel those push into your hand. So those aren't very comfortable. This is probably the most comfortable grip that there is out there. If you're looking for a gun, just go in the store, hold on to Smith & Wessons, hold on to Glocks, and then hold on to this. Right away, you'll know why you want this gun and why you want to pay a little more for it. Another great thing about this gun is that the shooting team and law enforcement have put a lot of feedback into this gun, and that makes it so the beaver tail is large, so you can easily get your hand up and high on it really quick. The bottom of the trigger guard is indented, so you can get your hand up there as high as you can. The front of this is bumped out, and there's serrations on the front so that if you have small hands, you can hold it out front like this and push down while pulling in, and that gives you a good recoil management. Or you could push your hand up against the bottom like that, and that gives you also good recoil management there. So there's all these little things they've done. Another thing is they've made it easy to load by making this nice and open. So if you take the other guns and you're playing around with them, you'll probably have a hard time pushing this in. But this is so fast that you can actually drop your magazine and push one in before the other one even drops on the ground. So it's really quick. You can push it in, and before the other one even drops on the ground, you can have your new one in. And they've designed that on purpose. They've made the magazine release really big, and they've made it so it's loose enough that it falls right out, and your new one can go right in. There's a lot of guns that it gets stuck up in there and you've got to push it out and pull it out. That's not going to make you very fast in a competition. So they've really designed this gun around speed and accuracy for IPSC. So you can just pop that right in. There's a lot of upgrades that you can do to this gun that are really cheap. For around 70 bucks, you could probably upgrade everything in the gun and keep it legal and make it a little bit better. Give yourself that little edge. But that's all you got to spend. You don't have to spend thousands. You can put a buffer in so that when it slams back, it won't hit as hard and it'll actually bounce off a little bit. Reduce your recoil spring to an 11 pound instead of 16. Reduce your main spring to 13 pounds instead of 15. You can replace your guide rod, which was a plastic one, with a metal one. That'll make it a little heavier so you can reduce recoil again. And this is not an upgrade, but you gotta get one of these. I got this as a birthday gift, and it reloads your magazines really quickly. The faster you can pick them up, the faster you can drop them in. And it's great that there's so few upgrades because you don't want to go and spend hundreds of dollars on this. You spend 800 bucks on it, you go spend $60 more, and the rest of the money you can go spend on ammo and shooting. Another great thing is that it has no firing pin block, so when you pull that trigger, it's going to be as smooth as it can be. This gun was made for accuracy, so it doesn't have that firing pin block. The other CZ75s do have the firing pin block, so watch out for that. If you get those other guns, the trigger pull won't be as smooth. So the Shadow definitely is the better one of them to get, because you want that trigger pull to be nice and smooth. So get the Shadow without that firing pin block. It just adds a bunch of stuff that you're doing while you're pulling the trigger, so it doesn't feel as smooth. So once you're sure it's clear, you can put your dummy round in, and we can take a look at the double action and single action pull. So in IPSC, you got to start in double action. That means you're going to have to put your thumb on here when you're loading and making ready. Put your weak hand thumb in between and then slowly release that hammer. And of course always point it at something that you're okay shooting, so concrete walls or the ground, and then you can go ahead and pull the trigger. Another thing that this has is a little set screw in the trigger, so you can set the amount of play after the trigger's released. I've set my trigger stop in the back to the point where after it clicks, it almost doesn't drop very far, as you can see. That means I can release to the point where I have the reset and then pull again with very, very little trigger movement. Look at that. That's a very good trigger because the reset is tiny, like 1.5 millimeters, and then right away I can drop the hammer. That'll give you a lot of accuracy and quick follow-up shots because after you shoot, you're supposed to get back on target before you go and release your finger and pull again. You're not supposed to release your finger all the way off and then pull back again. That wastes a lot of time and it's inaccurate. That's called slapping the trigger. The CZ was actually made to dry fire, so you don't need that dummy round in there, but you can put it in there if you want. You just put less wear on the firing pin. So definitely practice your single action pull, get back on target, and then release where your trigger resets and then pull again. In the Shadow, the trigger reset and then dropping the hammer again takes very little movement, and that's how you get this gun shooting faster and more accurate. Since this gun is made for competition, they've made the trigger reset very small and the trigger release even smaller. So this has been built perfectly for competition, speed, and accuracy. The Shadow doesn't come with a decocking lever. Some of them do, but this one doesn't have the decocking lever, so you've got to put your weak hand there. And I want to stress that if you use the trigger stop, you've got to put permanent thread lock on there. Otherwise, after a couple trigger pulls, it's going to creep out towards the back and then it'll stop your trigger from firing. And that's pretty bad. If you're actually using this for law enforcement, you probably want to take that completely out because you don't want that trigger stopping the firearm from discharging if you need it to discharge. Red lock on there so that it doesn't have any chance of stopping the trigger from actually firing the gun. Sometimes that'll happen, so be careful. A couple bad things about this is that the rear sight is a Novak style. That means it doesn't have the two tritium sights, and so people say that this is quicker target acquisition because you only have the front fiber optic sight to focus on, and that's good for IPSC because you're always looking at targets and you can do really quick target acquisition with this black sight in the back. But I'd rather have the tritium sight, probably because I'm not as good as the super competitive shooters, but I just like to have the 2 dots in the back because then you can get the 3 dots lined up easier. But I guess that's why it slows you down, because you got those 3 dots you're worrying about. So that could be a bad thing, but to some it could be a good thing. Another bad thing is that it's really fun to shoot. That means you're going to burn through a lot of ammo, you're going to join lots of competitions, you're going to have a blast with this thing. It's going to spend a lot of your money, a lot of your time, but to some that's bad, to some that's good. So to each their own. Other than that, I can't think of anything bad about this. They could have given you 2 more magazines, but you can go ahead and buy yourself 2 more magazines. They're a little expensive, but they're good quality, so I don't mind paying a little more for them. These are 18 round magazines, and you can fit 1 in the chamber, so it's a high capacity gun. Another good thing is that it's got nice accessories for it, so because it's a pretty popular gun. This is the Blade Tech holster, and I like this one because it holds it nice and tight, and you can actually adjust it. You just tighten these screws up if you want it a little tighter. This is also the Blade Tech magazine holder. These are also kind of expensive, but it holds it nice and secure, so you don't want to really cheap out on that. You don't want your gun falling out. So if you're thinking of buying the Shadow, definitely do it because it's a well-priced gun. It's only around 800 bucks, and there's a couple cheap upgrades you can add to it. Nothing crazy. It doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. It's very accurate. It's very fun to shoot. Doesn't have many problems. It's very reliable, so you won't always have headaches with it jamming and stuff. It doesn't shoot brass into your face like the Glock Gen 4 might after 800 rounds, so you don't have to worry about that. This was designed properly. It doesn't have any design flaws in it that I can see. It's very reliable, accurate, and it's well worth every penny. I hope that review helps you out, and thanks for watching. Also, I forgot to mention that it's got the cool weaver rail on the bottom, so you can put tack lights on it, lasers. If you put a laser on there, you can actually dry fire practice at home. You can videotape it and see if you're actually twitching before you pull the trigger. So that's a pretty good little accessory to have. It helps you train a little bit and just makes the gun a little more fun. If you get the WF-501B flashlight ultrafire, you can easily put that on your gun with the weaver rail 1-inch scope mount. Fits on right in between there. You don't need to put any spacers or anything. And the WF-501B has pressure switches that you can order off eBay, and that's probably only a couple bucks. Then you can put the pressure switch on the side here and you can play around with that if you want.
Your ball.
Here's the CZ75 Shadow with the 12x zoom, 50mm objective lens. See how it does at 25 meters. So it's not going to be perfect, but for the most part, pretty well. So today we're going to see which one of these oils has the lowest viscosity, the thinnest oil. It's important to know that because the thinnest oil will allow your firearm action to go very quickly. Any high viscous oil or thick oil is going to slow your firearm down. It's good for protection, but it won't be good for the speed of the firearm. So let's try to find out which one has the thinnest oil. I'm going to put one drop at the starting line and see how fast the oil goes. The fastest oil is going to be the least viscous, the thinnest. So it'll allow your firearm action to go the fastest. This oil is the only one that doesn't have a solvent in there. It doesn't have a cleaner. So you need to use Hoppy's number 9 to clean your gun first to dissolve all the fouling. But these 3 have cleaners. That's important to note because you will have to let the solvent dry out. I've shot these out to these 4 positions for a while. It's had some time for the solvent to evaporate, so now it should just be oil remaining. I'm going to try to get 1 drip of oil for each one and see how fast each one rolls down the track. I have a feeling CLP and outers are quite thick. I think Remington will be pretty quick. Oh yeah. So if we take a look from above here, you can see the Remington oil is very viscous and it also has really low surface tension. Look how wide it's spread there. So it's going to get into all your fine moving parts and keep everything nicely lubricated. It's not sticky, so it won't grab onto fouling and particulate matter, so it'll keep your firearm nice and clean. The CLP and outers is thick, so it's good for bolt action, and it will stay sticky and grab onto fouling and particulate matter. G96 is pretty thin, but it doesn't have very low surface tension, so it doesn't spread to the left and right as much, which means it's not going to get into all your fine moving parts, which means you've got to spray it all over the place. It won't creep all around, just like this Remington oil here. So there you go. I rate the Rem oil as number 1, G96 is number 2, and outers and CLP as 3 and 4 interchangeably. Those are good for bolt action, and these 2 are good for semi-automatic firearms. Thanks for watching, and I hope that helps.